Well, here is the new project slash beater. 99 Lexus LX470. Just getting broken in at 307,000 miles. Yeah, just picked this up last week. I actually got rid of a 2000 Land Cruiser that I had that was kind of too nice for me, for my taste. I didn't want to really beat that thing up too bad on trails or anything. It was in pretty good condition. So I got rid of that one and picked this up. As you can see, the clear coat is peeling pretty much all over the truck. But it looks kind of decent from 10 or 15 feet away. It's been pretty well taken care of. So this is the stack of paperwork that I got with the truck. And this is what you want to see, you know, when you're buying one of these vehicles. They've pretty much got all the repair bills since 2003, when the last owners bought it. So yeah, that's definitely a good sign. It's already had a couple starters put in it, an alternator, and lots of receipts for brakes, oil changes, typical things like that. So, plan on doing some camping mods with this, kind of getting it up to snuff. It's in need of a bit of work right now. Overall, I think it's in pretty good shape, but it's leaking a bit, I think from the power steering rack and some power steering lines. It doesn't seem like the engine's leaking at all, well, except for the valve cover gaskets. Again, it's pretty typical. You can see this thing's been hit on like every corner. It's been repainted. It's missing some stuff, but it's all good. Let's pop the hood on this thing. And of course, the hood shocks are blown. Typical. Got the AHC system, hydraulic suspension on this thing, which amazingly still works. Plan on doing a fluid flush as soon as possible on this thing to keep it going. I want to keep that hydraulic suspension system in place. A lot of people are quick to rip it out, but I'm a big fan of it. I know that it can definitely have some downsides as far as parts and availability goes, but the system should be fine. It operates normally right now, which is great. You can switch it from sport to comfort for the ride quality settings, and it actually makes quite a difference. Drove this thing home about 150 miles, and coming up through some of the canyons, I put it in sport, and it really tightened up the suspension a bit. I was pretty surprised by that, actually. and then you put it all the way to comfort. It just rides like a big boat, which is great. It's super comfortable. So another point of interest on this one, it's got some rust on the top of the windshield area. This thing has had a windshield put in it, and not very well. I don't know if you can see, but there's supposed to be like rivets used with these windshields, and they just put wood screws in, and it's probably just been getting water inside here and kind of rusting away a little bit. So at some point I'm going to pull this windshield out. It's majorly cracked already. I'm going to pull it out and see if we can repair some of that rust, and then put a new windshield in and hopefully get it installed correctly. See another little rust bubble there. Hoping it's not too bad. Doesn't seem like it. The A-pillars seem pretty clean. However, if it is to the point where it's going to be a real pain in the ass to fix it, I can just part this thing out and make my money back on it. I got it for a pretty good price. I think it was definitely the cheapest Land Cruiser that you could find in Colorado at the time. So, and rightfully so. I mean, it does need quite a bit of upkeep as it sits right now. I mean, nobody would buy this thing unless they were a mechanic or mechanically inclined. I mean, if you took this thing to a shop to get it up to snuff, I mean, it would cost you multiple thousands of dollars. And it would still be a great truck at that point, but I'm going to be doing most of the work myself, and that'll save quite a bit of money. And when I can, I'm going to do all Toyota / Lexus factory parts. It just makes a big difference on these trucks. It had a timing belt done about a year ago, and unfortunately they used an aftermarket belt kit. I think it's like a Dayco kit, and those are not that great for these vehicles. So I'll probably do a ASIN timing belt kit on it at some point, although that'll be really low on the priority list. But I want to keep this thing long term, and I don't want to have like a crappy Chinese tensioner or idler seize up and cause problems for me on this thing. So I'll leave the cheap timing belt on there for now, but it'll probably get switched out eventually. Let's see, I've got a little rust spot on the back hatch. This thing's been hit in the rear hatch as well. It's got some kind of bad Bondo work done here on it, so whatever. As long as it's, I mean, this is still a pretty solid truck, and these things are pretty much designed to go a million miles in a third world country, so I hope to get a lot of good use out of it. And I'm not going to be afraid to scratch it or dent it, or, you know, as they say, go full send on the trail. So yeah, that's a big plus for me. I don't like the idea of having a nice, expensive truck, you know, that I'm going to take off-road. Especially out here in Colorado, it can get a little hairy at some points. You know, you can definitely risk body damage. So if I do get a big dent in a quarter panel or something in this thing, it's not going to be the end of the world for sure. So yeah, this thing's been a Colorado truck its whole life. It's only been driven about 1,000 miles in the past year or so. So it's just been sitting a lot. So slowly but surely I'm gonna get this thing up to speed and hopefully keep it for a while. I really love these trucks. Kind of was working in the dealerships at the time when they were new, and you know, it was a pipe dream to afford one. So yeah, now I'm at the point where, you know, I can pick one of these up that's in need of some work and fix it up and have a great truck. So you know, everybody knows that these things are just, they drive like tanks, which I love. You know, in the Lexus it has a little bit more sound insulation and a little bit more luxury. So that's cool for me. I like it. Yeah, and the interior on it is actually in pretty good shape as well. It's not completely roached like a lot of them are, so that's great. It's got a little homemade repair there on the bolster, but no biggie. The seats overall are in not great, but pretty good shape. Some of them are like completely trashed, which I don't even understand how they get like that. But yeah, this one's in pretty good shape. The steering wheel is pretty good too. It's not completely chewed up. It's just got a little flaking there, probably where somebody was rubbing their pinky ring on it or something all the time. And no navigation, which is awesome. Nav system in these things is terrible. It integrates the HVAC controls, which can be a huge problem if the unit craps out. So I prefer this old school, no nav, no screen of any kind. Let's start it up. Really like the gauges on these as well. And it just purrs. I mean, 307,000 miles, and this thing's idling, you can't even feel it. Big fan of these 2UZ V8 engines. And yeah, 300,000 miles. This thing has tons of life left in it, and it has been decently upkept. So it has had, you know, I think it's had 4 timing belts done already that I could see when I was going through the receipts. Always had the oil changed, so that's the big things. You know, it could have some pretty good leaks and need some repairs, but as long as this thing is mildly taken care of, it should last a long time. And it's going to be a secondary, you know, fun vehicle, so I'm not going to put a lot of miles on this thing anyway. I have like a 4-mile commute to work, which, you know, I probably won't even drive this thing all the time. I've got an 01 ES300, which is God's Chariot, as my primary vehicle, so yeah, I'll probably keep the miles low on this thing, and it'll mainly just be used here and there. You know, anytime we get a big snowstorm, of course, this is the thing to drive. Oh, one other thing I'll show you. I didn't even notice this when I bought it. The axle is shifted to the right by like 4 inches on this thing. I don't know if you can see here how pushed in the left wheel is. Come around to this side, and it's like this one's actually sticking out a little bit of the fender. And when one of my coworkers pointed that out to me, I almost shit myself, because I immediately thought that this thing's been like rolled or something, and I don't know, had some kind of screwed up rear axle. But then we got to looking at it, and we found that the rear axle panhard bar is like completely bent in half, which is pretty comical. It looks like somebody might have tried to pull this thing out of a snowbank, or something happened. Somebody yanked on that panhard bar and just completely bent it, and that totally shifted the axles way to the right on this thing. And it's just kind of funny because I drove this thing 150 miles home after I bought it and didn't notice a thing. It drives completely straight. It's got some vibration, but I figured that's because the tires were flat spotted. They had tires put on it last year as well, so they're like still have 90% of the tread, but this thing's been sitting in the driveway pretty much for the past year, so it wouldn't surprise me if these tires are pretty much ruined, even though they're in pretty new condition. But that's okay. I'll keep them on there for a while and eventually switch them out for like some 285s, or maybe even something a little bit bigger in an all-terrain. But yeah, I'll be doing some update videos on this thing as it goes, doing some how-tos on some 100 series repairs and maintenance. Try to kind of get a little bit of a database going on this thing. So yeah, as I start doing repairs to it and stuff, I'll try to remember to film and make some more videos on this thing, showing some progress. First thing I'm going to do is flush the AHC system, make sure that's all operating properly, and then also replace the rear panhard bar, because that's definitely stressing the suspension out a little bit. And yeah, needs wheel bearings, steering rack, I believe, and just some other little odds and ends right now. It drives pretty good for the condition, surprisingly, which I think is a testament to these 100 series vehicles. I mean, even with that axle way out of whack and this thing just needing some love in general, I mean, it drives pretty remarkably. So that's it. All right.